Hello, I'm Jowanka Jakubek-Lalik and you're watching TVP World Talks, where every word matters. Now, the Polish Justice Ministry has released the latest audit concerning alleged irregularities in the Justice Department under the previous government. Among the highlights of this report are accusations of politicizing the country's prosecution service, which allegedly led to many politically sensitive cases being shelved. The opposition fired back by saying the indictment of their methods is itself politically motivated. But the question remains, is the justice system damaged beyond repair? Can ordinary citizens trust in prosecutors and judges to be able to act without any sort of bias, with utmost impartiality in all cases, no exceptions? Joining us now is Jowanka Jakubek-Lalik, Associate Professor at the University of Warsaw. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure.
So let's take a glance at the overall tone of this report. What does it tell us about the functioning of the prosecution service in particular under the previous administration?
Well, first of all, the prosecution service, the public prosecutioner, is one of the fundamental institutions in the democratic state, which is ruled by law, meaning that any irregularities which are identified in this report could have really damaging effect on the rule of law. And indeed, those irregularities identified by this report are numerous. Which means that these problems, these challenges to rule of law are impacting not only how the public prosecution office was working, but also the trust of the citizens.
The public perception, right?
Precisely.
Because obviously politicians may argue between themselves. They may say, oh, this is politically motivated. The others will respond, no, actually what you're doing is politically motivated. But ordinary citizens looking at this, are they likely to keep thinking, okay, so can I still trust this system to act impartially in my case?
This is precisely what I wanted to highlight here, that this report should actually regain the trust of the citizens in public prosecution office, because it means that the government, the public authorities are carefully examining what was happening in recent years and what type of mistakes have been made, what kind of even potential crimes have been committed by the public functionaries, meaning that it should rebuild the trust of the citizens in the state institutions. And indeed, public prosecution is one of the most important of them.
So one of the issues here was apparently it was fairly easy to sweep a case under the rug before it reaches the court, because according to one of the articles I read recently, the number of convictions in the Polish courts fairly high. There is a high chance that once a case gets to court, there will be a conviction. So some people apparently were trying to prevent that from happening. Do you think it is too easy to have a case being shelved while still being examined by the prosecutors, as opposed to reaching the courtroom?
Well, that was one of the mechanisms which was used by the public prosecution office. However, not only, because again, public prosecution's office was used instrumentally to, for example, prosecute or investigate the people or the institutions which were not in line with the government's policies, and contrary, those who were favorable or they were in the circle of the political party which was ruling at that time could actually expect that nothing will happen to them. So this is the very dangerous mechanism, that this very important office is used instrumentally just because some cases could be prosecuted or could be not. But because what is also important here is that indeed the role of the public prosecution, it is still in the executive. It is part of the, let's say, wide administration of the government. However, some degree of the independence, especially from any political pressures and political influences, needs to be guaranteed. And that was not the case. And this is why all those political pressures, all those situations which were very wrong happened during that time.
So would you say there is perhaps a solution to this? Because this narrative, i.e. The government using the prosecution to achieve their objectives, it also appeared in many cases before elections. Parties would say, we're going to fix that. Apparently it's not really happening in each individual case, because everyone else keeps bringing these accusations back. Would you say there is a method to ensure the degree of impartiality we're talking about?
In the democratic state, which is governed by law, it should be clearly separated when it comes to the performance of functions. Of course, it does not mean that there will be no supervision, because supervision is necessary and the oversight over the activities of a public prosecution. However, any politically motivated interference should be really carefully dismantled and also investigated if that happened. So those kind of mechanisms probably were lacking or were not properly used by the public prosecution office and the overseeing bodies, so Ministry of Justice as well. So here again, we still have not received the final version of the report. This is just the first part. So we should expect probably some more information in the further parts of the report. Anyway, even this report shows how many irregularities, how many problems there were, and also, it should provide us with opportunities to reflect on that and to provide some recommendations for the future activities of the public prosecution. So how to organize it in a way that it will be, on one hand, effective, but on the other hand, acting in accordance with the law, and also will not be above the law. And it will also not be facing the political pressures, which was the case.
The government is saying that separating the office of the Attorney General from that of the Justice Minister is going to do the trick. But will that be enough?
Well, that's one of the important mechanisms, I would say, because, again, we should not lose the overseeing opportunities and overseeing situation in the government. So public prosecution should be supervised by also elected politicians. However, the supervision needs to be limited and carefully monitored. So separating the office of Minister of Justice, who is always the politician, with the office of Prosecutor General, who should be at least to a specific degree impartial, is a very important step in that direction.
What about remedies? If you have a prosecutor saying, no, we're not going to pursue this case, we don't have evidence, we don't know who the perpetrator was, what remedies are available today? Perhaps should the list of available remedies be extended or made more readily attainable to ordinary citizens to ensure that they feel justice is being done?
But in this report, which was prepared by the team of prosecutioners working in the public prosecution office, it is indicated what kind of cases were, let's say, manipulated. So some of them were extended, some of them were dismissed based on the justification which was not, let's say, met with understanding. So here we should also think about remedies, also about the past proceedings. So some investigations are underway, and some of the public prosecutioners who were dismissing unlawfully the proceedings, who were terminating the proceedings, or who were, on the other hand, pursuing the proceedings above the instruments that law was providing, should be punished for that. And here we have two possibilities. One possibility is disciplinary proceeding within the public prosecution office, but the most serious ones also should face criminal charges.
Which cases do you think are the most glaring examples of that, according to this report?
Well, the majority of the cases mentioned in this report are also now known to the public, because they were basically known because the media covered those cases. So, for example, the two-tower affair of Mr. Jarosław Kaczyński and Law and Justice political party. So this should be definitely investigated in a proper and impartial way. Also, some other cases.
Well, that's a contemplated real estate deal, right? And investigating irregularities there. But there were also cases involving harm being done to specific persons.
Yes, and also I would like to highlight that not all of the...
Physical harm.
Physical harm even, yes, but it's not only the cases which were, let's say, politically motivated or politically engaged. Some civil society activists were harmed during the democratic protest in Poland, and those functionaries who, for example, during the women's strike were harming physically women, probably did not face the specified consequences.
Would you say that this perhaps is the most extreme case? Because an average citizen doesn't get involved in major political deals or huge business, ventures, but they might get involved in a car accident, for example. And if the person driving is someone famous or someone with connections, could they be thinking, do I have the guarantee that justice will be done?
That was precisely what happened. So with the car accident between Prime Minister Beata Szydło and ordinary citizen who was driving a car. And here, again, some irregularities have been identified in the proceedings. So again, every citizen of the country should feel that they are equal to the law and nobody's above the law. So everyone should have the understanding that they can expect fair treatment from the public prosecution. If that is not the case, it is a huge harm done to the trust of the citizen in the state.
Which, after all, is a principle that is not political in nature, it is universal. Precisely. Professor Jowanka Jakubek-Lalik was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insight.
Thank you very much.
And I'm Ina Szerwiński. You're watching TVP World. Please stay with us for more latest news and updates.